Whoop! Going live. Testing normal.
Can you hear that intro?
Yeah. You may not be able to, but I can.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
What?
Woo! How's it going,
Hey,
everybody?
Welcome to Testing Normal.
We are currently testing normal.
That's right. This is Curtis.
And this is Jordan.
And this is a podcast where we talk about anything and everything we want to.
Yeah. That's right.
So, we're kind of coming to this podcast with a new kind of approach today. We are we're
Super
basically
new.
trying to be advocates for social distancing and finding new ways to approach. Hey, get out of my face! Finding a new way to approach this kind of outbreak we have going on. So
Yeah.
Jordan and I decided, hey, let's do a virtual testing normal on our VR headsets. So Jordan's at his house actually right now, and I'm at my house.
Boop.
That's how we do it.
People have wondered how we do this before, and they've been like, "What? How do you do what? You've watched movies in what? This is not where we usually watch movies. We're usually in a big like theater.
Yeah.
But this is like a living room.
Jordan, question for you.
Yes.
That screen on our left, any chance you could actually move it to in front of us in the fireplace area over here?
No.
No? Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, anyways. So guys, I don't know how many of you out there listened to the recent presidential debate that just came out, but it was
that just was happening.
That literally just happened like a couple seconds ago. And if you look at us, if you see us, we'll be looking to our left every now and then because that's where kind of like the whole screen and Jordan's technical setup is. But anyways, so it was Bernie Sanders debating Joe Biden, and it was obviously a pretty. There you go, nice man. Oh, dude, that's so much better. Perfect. If you can angle it close to where we look at the camera. So right, yeah, there you go. Perfect. Okay. So, this was a debate of Bernie Sanders and Mr. Joe Biden, and I found it really interesting to me. First of all, I was surprised by how kind of with it Joe Biden was, or not Joe Biden. Sorry, Bernie Sanders was.
I've
always kind of like, yeah, I've always been kind of like thinking like, he's so old. I kind of had a lot of reservations with him being able to be sharp enough and be with it. But he was really like kind of present and able to like have a very lucid argument and conversation.
Yes, I agree. They both were. I still don't. I'm not a big fan of the arguing that people do. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Your hand just fell off.
Chips.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So what was the besides that? Like, what was the biggest thing that they talked about that you maybe were surprised by?
All right. So a couple interesting things. I was really surprised by. They asked if they how they felt about like the Chinese government and their dictatorship, kind of like and because in the past China had been a really poor country with like very limited resources, and they hadn't really been thriving. Well, when the communist state kind of took over and they had more of a dictatorship kind of rule, basically they started to really control a lot of what the state did, and that in some ways improved their food supply and rations and all this other stuff.
Right.
And so there was a kind of a controversy because Sanders was saying like, he kind of, even though he doesn't agree with the dictatorship type of rule, he says they kind of did improve their country. And so it was kind of this big controversy of like, well, hey, you're supporting a dictator-like country, so you must want a dictatorship yourself, and then kind of went on that sort of kick.
Right. I thought it was interesting. They were like, how could you ever praise anything? And I was like, well, there's some positives you could pull out of just about anything.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But here's an interesting question I had, and this is going to be super controversial for you all, okay? Super controversial.
Perfect.
Okay. So here's an interesting thought. Okay, so China, right?
Yes.
They, in the past, have been responsible for the outbreak of the original SARS outbreak from these open markets where they're allowing people to eat rare and raw live animals, basically.
Right.
And they're not eating live animals, but They kill them and then they eat them. Maybe live octopus, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, so they're eating these animals and then they're exposing people to these viruses of these animals and then they're breaking out to the world. So it happened with SARS and now it's happening again with COVID-19. So
Right.
here's the interesting question. And this is going to be controversial, okay?
Do it.
So if China is responsible potentially for releasing this pandemic to the world, should they be held responsible? In the respects, for example, it's responsible of be responsible in the way like Germany was responsible for reparations when
Right.
they unleashed World War II, killed a bunch of people. Now their crime was a crime of hate, whereas
Right.
the Chinese government isn't necessarily a crime of hate, but more of a crime of neglect, right? So
Right.
it seems like this is a repeated issue that this country is potentially causing the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions, worst case scenario. That's a question of like, man, eventually once this calms down, do we hold them accountable for this? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It would take looking at, like, in the beginning we saw, like, instead of like cutting down on trying to take care of the disease, they were trying to quiet down people that were trying to talk about how bad it actually was.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
Exactly.
so maybe at least their reaction to it. Although
Yeah.
if you look at it now, like, I feel like after watching our president talk about it, they're sort of responsible in a sense for downplaying as well. But we haven't seen it break as hard yet.
Right. Right. Um. Yeah. Exactly. We haven't seen it break as hard yet. That's true. Um. But yeah, it's interesting, kind of feeling like we also don't want to demonize that other country right now or China because they also have the most research that's taken place and the most kind of experience what's happening with right now. So in this time of like desperation, do we really want to make an enemy out of someone that could potentially be a big resource of ours?
Right. Yeah, for
Right?
real. Yeah, we
You know?
can't do it yet. I think that's the case.
Yeah.
But they have
And I want
offered
to.
help too, because like
Have they offered help to the U.S.?
they have. So well,
Have they?
at least there was a Chinese billionaire who is like offering a ton of different tests to send in.
Mm.
But they're also sending a lot of help to Italy too. I thought that was really
And
cool. I saw an article about that where
so,
they were like,
just so
"You
you guys
helped
know,
us, now we help you."
occasionally Jordan will sound like a robot because his headphone is a little messed up. So it happens. We'll get over it. It's technology. We're learning. We'll make it happen. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
we're not.
Um.
Oculus is.
Okay. So interesting that you said China was willing to give aid to us.
Right.
Um. Also, also I want to give a shout out to a couple people real quick. Jono, hey buddy. Just want to say hey, how you doing? Christina, hey, how you doing? Tanya, hope you all doing good. Okay. So, but what
My
I wanted to say was
Also, my uncle says, "I'm here. Love your new look." I think it's funny that we both picked NASA. Did you do that because you saw mine?
no, I just had
What?
picked it.
Yes.
Awesome.
High fives.
High fives.
Woo!
Okay. So, no, guys, we'll reiterate this again. We decided to do virtual podcast tonight because we're trying to practice social distancing and we are encouraging people to do the same to help curb. We don't necessarily think it's social distancing isn't going to completely get rid of the virus, but it's hopefully going to help slow the infection rate of individuals and then decrease the overwhelming demand on hospitals. So we
Right.
encourage social distancing as much as possible. You guys still go out, get your groceries, take care of your family, take care of what you need, but maybe try curbing some of the things that you don't need. You don't have to get a big group of 20 people together and have a party. You don't have to go out to a bar. You don't have to go out and have all these things that you might not have the risk of death from getting an infection, but you could spread it even if you don't know you're active infected and then give it to somebody that who could give it to somebody that could give it to somebody and then perpetuate the
Right.
already kind of overwhelmed system. So,
Right. So
yeah,
for
think
us,
about it.
that was you've been exposed to hundreds of people,
Yeah.
and you were like, "I don't even really want to be around you,"
Right.
which I
Right.
took offense to
Right. Naturally.
naturally.
As one would.
Right.
As one would.
Exactly.
So he cussed me out and then we moved on.
Right. We're done.
We're done. We'll go. So, anyways, another interesting thing that I found out about today, I was listening to this debate, and I did not know the current Trump administration was offered by the World Health Organization test kits.
Oh yeah.
And they were offered to sell active test kits that we could use across our entire nation and have much more like availability basically to screen individuals,
Right.
and they declined it. They declined these
Yes.
test kits from the World Health Organization,
Did
which
it,
is just like, what the hell? How
what
could that happen?
what did they give a reason why?
Huh? No,
Because
it
it,
was just, well,
so
because what they had said after they declined it, they said we have our own testing facilities and agencies and capabilities. We don't need your stuff.
oh my gosh. So I watched the I think it was it Friday, Thursday or Friday when Trump had his big like coronavirus thing. Number one, he seemed very off. Like they say he tested negative. The dude something sounded wrong. Like he was stammering more than normal. Like
Hi, Becky Jacobson. Hope you're doing good.
and it seemed like he maybe he has. I mean, he would be at a risk. He would be in a
Yeah.
risk group. But then also, like,
You are sounding like a robot, so I'm gonna take over for a second.
okay, do it.
Okay, wait, now you sound better. Go for it.
Okay, so but the thing I also noticed was right after he got done talking, it just became infomercial time for him saying, "Here's the big corporations we're going to be working with." So it's like, oh my gosh, you're just trying to
Okay,
profit.
very interesting you say that. So, about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes before, or not much before the presidential debate started, they, the federal government dropped the federal rates down.
Right,
So, federal interest rates down. So they were like to, I don't know, what, 2% or something like that,
right,
1%. But they just dropped them down from 0.25 to 0%.
right.
The big 0%. I'm trying to make
Hmm.
zero with my hands. Sorry, guys, it's hard.
How would you do that in this?
I
It's
guess
more
like
like
this.
a heart.
Yeah. So,
Maybe
anyways,
I'll
um,
I'll keep working on it.
all right, you work on that. So, um, it was interesting to me. It's like, okay, there is someone that's going to be benefiting from this, but I, when the interest rates dropped, I went and I called my local bank because it's like, I could benefit from a decrease on the interest rate for my home loan.
Yeah,
Um, but because there was such an overwhelming amount of people that were trying to get
right,
these decreased interest rates, the banks decided to actually increase their rates because so many people were trying to get these decreased interest rates. So like even though the federal rate is almost 0%, banks are at like 4% right now, which is
right.
crazy. So like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this trickle down effect, help these banks, give them this big like decrease in federal loans,
Hmm.
federal interest rates, but really, like the banks are like, no, we're too busy, so we're gonna actually make more money off of them now. Like
Right.
what?
So my mom actually is saying CDC turned them down. I don't know how that's any different than the government. If you have any, um,
Wait, say that again.
she said the CDC is the one that turned the tests down, but I would consider that to be the federal government.
The federal government, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. They're federal regulatory organization that the CDC still has. They still fall underneath the presidential recommendations and
Right.
guidelines, or not guidelines, but recommendations. So, um, yeah, that administration still could request the CDC to do something
Yeah.
if
My
they
uncle also
wanted.
says I was going to take the whole family to Hawaii, all expense paid, but can't do it now. So sorry.
Oh no.
No, no, no.
Oh my
He's
gosh.
he's including me in that, like saying sorry, can't do it
Oh,
now.
not. I thought you just meant his immediate
Yeah,
family.
he's just
Gotcha.
he's just being a silly guy. He's not that
Uh,
generous. Well, maybe he is. I don't know.
maybe. We'll
Uh,
just tell him when this whole thing clears up, take a rain check for that.
yeah, yeah. Seriously, I'll take a rain check. I'm good with that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. For sure, for sure, for sure.
Woo! Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
so
that was
what's your
surprising to me.
you had some interesting ideas on social distancing, like
Yeah.
other ways that people could do it, or other
Okay.
ideas that we could implement it.
Yes. Okay. So this is something actually that I am a huge proponent of, and I feel bad for a lot of the elderly, right? Because they're the ones that are most at risk.
Yeah.
So,
Now, when we say elderly, it kind of could sound mean, but people who are more advanced in age than we are,
right.
what
Well,
would
even
what's
we're
the
at higher risk than people in their 20s, right?
true? Yeah, but what's the, like? When does the age technically start for higher risk?
So, that's what we're not totally sure on. According to what we've seen out of Asia, there's about 60 and above. But what we're seeing in Italy right now and in France, we're seeing like 30 to 50-year-olds that are like in the ICU right now
Right.
and struggling. So it's a little bit of a question mark if and what type of data we received from China was accurate.
Right.
Um, but as far as social distancing goes, I am really a huge proponent of what's starting to happen now. In a couple private companies have started doing this, which is really really cool. An Australian supermarket called Woolworths. So maybe Jonna would know about this place. Woolworths
That sounds like
is now
the really old store, Woolworths.
Woolworths. Yeah. So now they're starting to open its doors exclusively to the elderly and people with disabilities, dedicated to shopping an hour, um, like an hour, like there's an hour slot where it's only for elderly and disabled people.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, but I was thinking like this, like I think our grocery stores should have like from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. only people over the age of 60.
Yeah.
And then they totally scrub the stores before they get in there, make it really clean. That way it eliminates some of
You
the
mean
stress
10
and
a.m.,
strain.
7 to 10 a.m. You said 7 to
Oh,
10 p.m.
no, 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 no. Sorry, my bad.
I was
7
like,
a.m. to 10 p.m.
I was like,
7
you
a.m. to
do
10
realize
a.m.
that's
Yeah.
all day.
No, no, no. 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. So
Right.
take some of this fear off of these elderly that you can go in this store now and you have no risk of being exposed to this, 5-year-old kid that's coughing and wiping his nose on that door handle.
Right.
Or I really like the idea of implementing more like social community programs, like
Oh,
saying, "Hey,
Jono said we just call it Woolies. That's what it's called.
Woolies." All right, cool, gotcha. Thanks, John. Yeah, yeah, Woolies, and that way to go, Woolies. Like, I really think that's a
That's a cool
that's a
thing.
noble approach
Mm-hmm.
for
I think
sure.
that's cool. I don't. Yeah, our well, like we have Winco around us, and so do a lot of people in Northwest. They just changed their hours. They're no longer 24/7
And I
because they're
didn't even
having
know
to.
they were 24/7 in the first place.
Oh,
But
really?
no, I had no idea they were 24/7.
That's
I
funny.
had no idea. Yeah. Um. So yeah, social distancing in the respects of like not having big social gatherings if possible right now, because it's not necessarily that it's going to prevent. It's not, the risk isn't necessarily to you, but it's being selfless in a way. It's like you're in a way protecting someone else, is the way I see it. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I totally get it. My dad just texted me. It's really hard to read text while in a VR headset. But I
Mm-hmm.
I did it, Dad. I did it for you. He said a suggestion for helping businesses that might be failing during this, because like there's a few businesses around here that have already said we're probably not going to make it through this. Um, is
Mm.
to is to buy gift certificates to use after this crisis is mostly blown over.
That's interesting. Yeah. So like buying a gift certificate now, that gives the company money right now,
Right.
basically.
Right.
And then you could use it later on. Okay, I
Correct.
see. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good idea. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
I think it's a good like simple idea. That's cool.
I don't know how many people will um, want to go into the store though and
But
get
yeah.
it,
But
but
you can some of them
yeah,
you can get online or you can call
that's
them.
true.
They can email it to you.
That's a good point.
So
Um, yeah, so I would say I don't think we're looking at a blizzard, a quick short thing, guys. I think
I
this is
don't
going to
think
be
so either.
a marathon.
Sadly,
And
I
if we
hope
can
that's wrong.
if we can slow down the I think eventually everyone, or not everyone, but a large proportion of the population will have exposure. But if we can slow down the amount of people and the timing that those people get exposed to it, it
Hmm.
will not overwhelm the healthcare system as much.
Right.
And that's what
And
we need basically for people to
right.
survive.
Right. That's the big deal.
Yeah, that's the big deal.
Yeah.
So, any other thing? I got a couple other things that were pretty juicy about the debate that I felt like. Did you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
anything
yeah.
else that you were like
Absolutely.
that was interesting?
No, I thought it was so much better to just listen to two people talk
Yeah.
versus that. There's a few things I thought it was really interesting. The part that probably caught my eye the most was when Sanders was calling Biden out for lying about things that he had voted on,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Okay, fine. If you're not going to admit to lying, I'll just encourage the American people go watch the videos. He lied."
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was really interesting. I thought it was interesting how uh, Bernie, he and Biden kind of said that they were saying that due to being in a state of emergency right now,
Mm-hmm.
that if you're diagnosed with corona, that you won't have to pay for the cost of any of those medical bills.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that? Were they saying that?
I think they were saying they shouldn't have to,
It made
because
it come across that like if you were diagnosed with it, you and your family will not have to pay for the cost of those medical bills. And I was like, "Woo,
I don't
better
know
be
that
careful with that one, buddy."
I don't think that they have the ability to say that. I think they're
But
saying like if it was them, that's what they would do. At
oh,
least
okay,
that's how I heard it. But
it made it sound like because they're in a state of emergency, that was the case, but that probably isn't the case. Um, and
my
then the
Gary, my uncle's asking, is it true that as the weather gets warmer that the virus dies down?
okay,
What's your
so
opinion on that?
that's an interesting thing. We don't really know with this virus. There is a couple like theories and not necessarily proven kind of concepts that viruses have lipid layers, and when they're exposed to really hot environments, they can't sustain those lipid layers, and then they break down and die. So like if somebody coughs on their hand and touches a door handle, and then someone
Mm-hmm.
else, and it's in 110-degree weather, then that basically that cell wall dies and doesn't or can't survive as long
Right.
out in the wild. So there is kind of this common like thing, like, yeah, if it's hot it won't last. But Italy is a good example of it. They're fairly warm weather,
Right.
and their entire country's in serious pandemic right now. So
Right.
it's not proven. And the kind of the same thing like MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. That was in a really hot area, and that virus still thrived.
And I
Um,
was seeing too that at least like, and you could speak to this more. Part of the problem with this is that it's sweeping so fast versus the flu is like 3 to 4 month spread, and then that curve is way lower, and that's why the social distancing and doing anything that we can to keep people from getting infected is most important.
right. And the other thing, as far as like summer months go, kids aren't in school. So things don't spread as fast when kids aren't in school, because kids are little germ factories
True.
that harbor everything and share everything. So that's a big factor too. That's kind of also why they have a summer or a Christmas break, because that in some ways helps to curb like the influenza outbreak during the
Right.
winter.
Your mom actually said that. She said kids aren't in school, and that's why it dies down? Question mark.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. It is an interesting thought. Um, but yeah, I don't know if that's actually a proven fact.
Yeah.
Um, so national lockdown. Um, I think the question I heard, is that going to be a national need? The
Right.
CDC actually just tonight came out with a guidelines, and they advised no groupings, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Mm,
So the CDC just recently was like saying, groups of 250 or 200, something like that, and now they say no groups larger than 50. And
really?
um, mm-hmm, yep. And now
Okay.
they released that tonight, and I see that there's going to be a continued trend of that decreasing as long as until we get a better control of this.
Yeah. Sadly.
Um, let's see what else was there. That was interesting. Yeah, and then I mean they touched on other interesting things, like Biden made a comment about, there was a question that they asked, and they said, would you promote, um, what would you do if you become president to promote female health and success and benefit basically the female gender? And
Right.
he said, well, if I become elected as primary candidate, I will have a female
And then he
vice
was trying to
president.
get Bernie to say he would do the same.
The commentators were like, okay, Biden just said you do it. Would you do it, Bernie? And Bernie said, well, usually women are more progressive, and I'm obviously very progressive.
Right.
So there's a high likelihood I would take a female as a vice president, but I have to see, like, if there's one that
I
wants to work with me, then that'd be great.
I did like his answer because he was basically not locking himself into it and
Yeah.
saying like, I'm gonna pick the person that's best for
Right.
what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked the fact that I mean, I just don't like it when anybody tries to force somebody else to do something. Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. When you have forced diversity, it's no longer diversity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They talked a little bit about global warming.
Hmm.
But that kind of I didn't get into that part too much. I think I was helping put the kids down at that point.
Yeah. They talked about the climate crisis a little bit and how what they would do. Bernie's was much more um, extreme. That's what they were labeling it as. I actually don't think his is that extreme, but they're very similar in that.
Well, but the difference was Biden's plan was like $1 trillion,
I think
and
Bernie's
and
is 1.9.
no, and Bernie's was like 12.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. It was a lot. Yeah.
So they're saying like, why is there such a discrepancy between your guys' plan for this global warming initiative? And Biden was like, I just don't need that much. So I was kind of, oh, that's cool. I kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah. It's one
Speaking,
cool thing that I've seen about this is companies doing good things. One of them was Apple, which I'm kind of an Apple fanboy.
uh-huh.
They came out this week and said that they're giving retail and hourly workers unlimited sick leave for coronavirus-like symptoms. So not just salaried people who
Interesting.
they can send home, the retail people they're
Uh-huh.
saying we're gonna continue to pay you for these and it's unlimited, which I think is a cool response. Not only that, it makes sure that if people think they have it, they're gonna actually take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, unlimited PTO companies are always interesting to me.
Well, it's just for that. It's not
Yeah,
like
I know, but
yeah,
that concept of unlimited PTO is kind of unique.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think for them it's kind of trying to protect themselves too. They don't want everyone to start getting sick. So they're like, hey, if you have it, please stay home. Like they're not they're removing all
Although the
excuses.
funny part is like it appears right now the reason why social distancing and social responsibility is important is because there's a high suspicion that people are infectious without being symptomatic.
True.
And
Yeah.
so that's like the ultimate kind of fix for a lot of this is if we had more testing available.
Right. Right.
Um,
That's true.
and then until we have more testing available, then we should be more responsible.
That was one thing that I wasn't a big fan of when it came to um, Trump's thing that he was saying is like, not everyone needs to get tested. I was like, why wouldn't you want and promote most people to at least get tested to find out, like, should they stay home? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they could just say if you have the symptoms, stay home.
You're a robot. You're a robot right now. So
Oops. How about now?
that's okay. There you go. That's better.
Um, if people get tested, they're more apt to stay home versus, oh, I might have symptoms. I guess I'll just chance it.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
so.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an evolving situation. It's not it's not good to make decisions out of panic or
Right.
even necessarily out of
AKA toilet paper.
yeah, aka toilet paper monsters.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we don't want people to make decisions out of panic, but we want to use it out of wisdom. Make decisions out of wisdom and out of precaution for other people and out
Right.
of wanting to um, not necessarily because as an individual that likes to challenge things,
Mm-hmm.
um, it would be in my nature to be like, no, I don't want to do this. But I also firsthand see the risks involved in not social distancing ourselves, and it's a responsible thing to do.
Right.
So, and it's a selfless thing to do.
Right.
Dude. So you got any other things you want to hit on? I got a couple shower thoughts.
Well, there's a couple funny things. So,
Okay.
Mexico is considering closing their borders to Americans
Whoa.
over this, which I find.
Mexico's like, we got you.
If you're gonna, if
Build
you're gonna,
that wall taller. Build
if
that
you're,
wall taller.
yeah, they're
That's what
like
saying.
they're installing a wall. So I thought that was kind of funny, but also like. But speaking of the toilet paper, you saw the article we talked about a little bit beforehand that the guy that drove like 1,000 miles to get like a garage full of all of his supplies, and now he wants everyone to feel bad for him that he got kicked off Amazon and eBay and can't sell them.
I heard that there was some type of like federal regulator that was, or like there was some type of like investigation going on for somebody like because they were taking more of the necessary supplies. Like
This
they were like a prosecutor was looking at like going after him.
in this article though, he's like standing in front of a storage unit full of all of the
Oh
supplies,
my gosh.
and I'm
What
like,
is this?
dude.
Well, wasn't he trying to sell them on Amazon? Like
Yeah, Amazon has
that's
cut.
what his normal job was.
Yeah, Amazon has cut down and like stopped people from doing that. So they were there one day, and now you can't go find the overpriced stuff.
Oh my god.
Mostly the nice stuff is still there. That's like, 5-ply toilet paper. That's
So
$20 a roll anyway.
Yeah. So have you gone to this? Have you gone to the store, like
Dude,
any of the stores
I
for this
just
whole outbreak, and
I
seen
just went to
what it
Winco
looks like?
today,
Okay, how'd it
and
look?
so there was vegetables and stuff like that. It definitely
Like
there was a
fresh. There was fresh stuff.
yeah, there was definitely things missing. I couldn't get romaine lettuce; it was gone.
Not
Um,
the romaine lettuce.
I know, and it was
Holy.
generally like hard to find some things. There was
Mm-hmm.
no toilet paper to be spoken of. They're limiting people now on how much they can
Good. They
buy.
should. They should.
Um, but it was gone for today, and they're closing aisles down to restock during the day, and then they close at night to
So
restock.
you know how they have like the like Scooby Doo, like there's those Scooby Doo Instagram pictures, where and they take the mask off the ghost and it's like a bad guy,
Yeah,
they took the mask off of Scooby Doo ghost and it
just
said
toilet
like
paper.
it said the coronavirus a culprit, and it took the mask off the ghost and it was the Charmin Ultra bear.
Oh my gosh, that's
So it
so
was like
good.
they're saying, Charmin's behind this whole thing, like trying to get people. They're behind the virus, so people would buy more of their toilet paper.
Yeah.
It's kind
Um,
of funny.
Another thing, just one quick thing, just to be watching because people are like so paying attention to this right now. And I'm a tech guy, and so an article came up this week where there's a bill trying to go through. It's called the Earn It bill, and it has an acronym that I'm not going to remember at this point. But it's basically saying we want to end sex trafficking, which we're for. But it also is challenging some of our um, privacies like end-to-end encryption, which people don't know they use every day with Facebook Messenger, with
Right.
iMessage, with
So the
WhatsApp.
government's trying to get into all of our apps to know everything we
They're
can.
trying to have a backdoor or have the companies earn the ability to have that. And I don't, that's just
No,
a super slippery slope. That
no, yeah.
yes, we want to end sex trafficking,
Ooh, you're a
and
robot right now. Um,
yeah, so
yeah,
we want to end sex trafficking. We're
yeah,
all for that, but not for these backdoor things that are just
totally,
a bad thing.
totally. Yeah,
So
no
here's a
good.
question for you before we go into shower thoughts,
Okay, hit
and
me
then
quick. What do you
and then
got?
I have a quick TIL too.
Okay,
Um, your best friend
best friend,
is faking being asleep,
faking
and
being asleep.
you need them to wake up.
I need them to wake up.
What do you say out loud to trick them into waking up?
To trick them into waking up. That's a good question. I would tell them. Um, ooh. Um. Mm, well, maybe their kid got hurt. That would wake them up. That gets. I mean, if your kid's like the ultimate thing that really people care most about, so it's like,
That's true.
okay,
That's true.
like, dude, your kid has a freaking. Your kid just broke his arm. Get up.
Yeah. Get up
You know?
now. He lost a
Yeah.
leg.
Yeah. Something like that. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
What would you say?
I was trying to think about that. I was thinking like if we were in Rome and you were pretending to take a nap,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
um, what would I say? Probably something along the similar lines. Or like if it was you, I'd be like, dude, I just found out that Rome had like 300 cases. Or like
Yeah.
pretend I was
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
phone and be like, what?
Yeah.
300 cases and 20 deaths reported in downtown Rome?
Yeah. 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 Something dramatic
Yeah,
that
you would
would
never
be
go to sleep that
incidental.
night. You'd
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay, so here's my quick TIL, and then we'll do some
Okay.
shower thoughts and let these people go, and maybe I'll give them a backstage tour of what we're looking at here. Um, Today I learned in 1666 the plague-infested village of Eham, which I don't remember where it's
Eham.
at, but I did read about it earlier,
Right next to
quarantined itself
Etham.
inside a marked circle for 14 months.
What?
And neighboring communities left food at the edge of the circle in
What?
exchange for disinfected coins.
What?
80% of the
That's
people
amazing.
80% of the people died, but no one crossed the circle.
Oh my god.
Talk about social distancing. Isn't that crazy?
80% of the people died.
Yep. Which means they protected the people around them and they never broke the line.
Bro,
Isn't that crazy?
that's huge.
Yeah. Props to those people. Yeah. I'm scrolling
That's
down to
crazy.
my shower thoughts.
Okay.
You can't see
All
the
right.
screen over here, but I can. And you kept
I'm
moving in
gonna
front of it, so
I'm gonna hit some shower thoughts at y'all.
okay. How about I start because I think I have a couple more.
Okay, yeah, you go.
Okay. A night before a day off is better than the actual day off.
So true. So true. It's so freeing to know
Yes.
you have nothing you got to do the next day.
Right.
Nothing at all. Oh my gosh, yes, I love that one. Okay. With all this quarantining, pets must think they've finally convinced us not to leave
Oh,
every day.
that's so true. So
That's like
true.
we've solved it. How did I figure it out?
It's hard to be a prepper. During the good times, people dislike you because they think you're paranoid. During the bad times, they dislike you for being right all along.
True. Good point. I like it. This month, like in particular, March Madness kind of got a whole new meaning this year.
Oh my gosh. That's so true.
Yeah.
Suddenly, staying at home in your underwear all day doing nothing is the most proactive thing you can do.
Everybody commends you for that. Yeah, that's true. The people fighting over toilet paper are probably the same people who fight during Black Friday.
Oh, that's so true.
Right? Don't you think?
Yes, they've got all the tickle me Elmos.
Yeah.
Your bloodline has survived every epidemic up to this point. Try not to screw it up.
Oh my gosh, very true. Very true. Dude, okay, if you go see a Quiet Place movie this Friday, the theater will probably also be a very quiet place.
Oh, that's so true. um, it's 20 times easier to tell if someone likes you if you don't like them back.
Wait, say that again?
It's 20 times easier to tell if someone likes you if you don't like them back.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. This isn't as funny. It's just like a crazy, like it's just a fact. It's a crazy thought. Like
Yeah.
some person decided to eat a raw pangolin, contaminated probably with bat blood, and 6 million people's lives instantly changed.
Oh my gosh.
Changed in 2 months. Yeah.
Okay. If you can't look back at your younger self and realize that you were an idiot, you're probably still an idiot.
You're probably still an idiot. There you go. Okay, this is my last shower thought for y'all. Be careful, because Jehovah's Witnesses know that you're at home now.
Oh gosh. Okay, here's my last one. We actually had the same amount. Well, because you had a couple that were doubled over for me. Kids that saved their games multiple times grew up to be adults that lock their cars multiple times.
That's true. That's true. Oh man, that's good. Dude, that's good stuff, man. Well,
Sweet.
we might be coming to you again. Keep doing it, this podcast, through.
Hey, before we sign off, I'm going to show people the back view we have, so they
Okay.
can see what we see.
Yeah.
Look at that's one.
There's a couple other camera
Look at that.
views. So when
That's
we're sitting in this room,
this is outside our house. See?
hey guys.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of a high view of our house.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So there's several different rooms. I think every week we should come from a new room. We'll come like in a new area.
There's
Yeah.
one that has a Roomba now that runs around in the room.
Yeah, I know. That's my main home base.
Oh, is it? Nice.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hope you all have a great week. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands really good. Don't share cups with other people. Practice social distancing as much as you can, but obviously still take care of yourself. Go to your appointments that you need to go to.
Yep.
Just be cautious with it. Maybe avoid the bars if you can. Avoid the restaurants if you can. Buy gift cards from those restaurants. Keep them going. Keep them healthy. Keep them thriving. Support your community that way. And hope you all have a great week.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys.
All right. We'll talk to you.
But not in person for a while.